Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. Let's be honest, your shower has been strictly business. It's time for some actual pleasure in there. Enter the Magic Wand Waterproof. Same iconic deep rumbly power, now cordless and fully waterproof, which means shower, tub, pool, cold plunge, all fair game. You've got 4 intensities, 4 patterns, that soft silicone head, and the flexible neck that knows exactly what it's doing. If your shower routine could use something unexpected and delightful, this is it. Find the amazing Magic Wand Waterproof on their Where to Buy page at magicwandoriginal.com/where-to-buy. You know what I've been thinking about a lot lately? How much better everything feels when your body is just comfortable. Less friction, less irritation, more confidence to actually be in the moment. That's a big reason I love Uberlube, and why I have for a long, long time. Yes, it makes sex feel amazing. It's silky, long-lasting, and doesn't get sticky, but it also shows up in ways people don't expect. Hot weather? It prevents chafing. Working out? Same thing. Long day in a dress or shorts? I promise you your thighs will thank you if you use Uberlube. And I love that it's part of this idea of lube without labels, because pleasure, comfort, and bodies don't fit into neat categories, and your products don't need to either. It's just a really well-made formula that works for your body, however you use it. If you want more confidence and better feeling everything, go to uberlube.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at checkout. Hello, and welcome back to Sex Ed with DB for season 14. Can you believe it? I can't. I'm DB, your favorite sex educator and pleasure expert, and today I'm bringing you a fantastic conversation with the Ericka Hart, sex educator and author of the new book, Nasty Work: Resist Systems, Explore Desire, and Liberate Yourself. In this amazing conversation, I talked with Ericka all about sex education as resistance, which is also, coincidentally, the name of a course of hers that you can take. That link is in the show notes, so check that out. And a lot of this discussion is about the intersection between colonization and sex, and how we can question and free ourselves from the harmful narratives that come from that intersection. But it's also a hoot. She is hilarious. We laugh a lot in this episode. Ericka is so fun to have as a guest. She's just wonderful. So I can't wait for you to hear everything that we talk about in this amazing first episode of season 14. And as always, just a reminder, stay tuned till the end of the episode for some key takeaways and our pleasure practice of the week. Here I am with Ericka. Hello, Ericka. Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here. I was gassing you up before we started recording, but huge fan of your work. You're a legend in the sexuality and health space, the sex education space. And this is a really awesome moment for me to be able to talk to you about your new book, which I have here, Nasty Work. And I'm so thrilled to talk to you all about it. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm a bit tired. I just came off of I think almost 5 city tour. It started, I say almost because the 5th city was in a little earlier than this back to back, but I just did 4 cities back to back. So I am just a little, I'm hanging on by a thread. But I'm going to give you everything.
That's so sweet. I'm so happy to catch you kind of at the tail end of your joy. That's really incredible.
Yeah.
Well, again, thrilled to have you here. We're going to get into your book. We're going to talk about every single piece of it, about the background behind it, and kind of like basically your ethos around it. But before we get into the book, we're going to start with the quick and dirty, which is our rapid fire segment. We get to know our expert through bold questions, honest answers, and real pleasure-centered insight. This season is all about pleasure. I'm so excited that you're the first episode of this is our third pleasure season. We've had 2 previous seasons all about pleasure. We're kind of moving into our third pleasure season.
Amazing.
And yeah, I think that people really are craving it right now, especially. We're wanting to talk about how to access our pleasure and our joy. So I'm wondering, for the first quick and dirty question, if you could answer succinctly. I know it's tough because, people who write books, they're verbose typically.
Yeah, yes.
And you're a professor, you're an educator, you like words. Yes. But what's the most surprising thing that you found while writing this book, either about yourself or about what you researched?
The most surprising thing. I think, I don't know if there's a right way to answer this question, but the what's coming to mind most immediately was how challenging it was for me to get out of my own way to put words on the page. I think
like the process.
It is very easy for me to create a curricula and go in front of people and teach, right? And it can't be about algebra, right? But if it's about under the spectrum of sex ed,
right? We're not teaching kind of any triangles.
Not teaching physics. No, I'm not doing that. But if you're like, hey, could you give me a lesson on consent to 3rd graders? You got it by the end of the week, right? But writing a chapter on consent in the expansive ways that I talk about it in my classrooms, to translate it to an audience that I don't know, right? When you go into a classroom, you know who you're going to be speaking to. You know technically the age of the group, right? But it's so broad when you write a book. So writing in that way, it was very, very challenging. And I think the biggest challenge for me was trusting that I could do it. Right. I think a big reason that I wrote this book was because so much messaging surrounds Black and non-Black people of color in terms of how we're related to, our bodies are related to, but that also goes to how people relate to what we know or allege that we don't know.
Totally. We're going to spoil the book a little in a sense.
Yes.
What is one big takeaway that you think everyone should be left with or hope after reading your book?
I would say one big takeaway is that we must stop relating to sex education as the field, but also conversations about sex and sexuality as if it is an apolitical discussion or a distancing from politics, if you will. Politics are all up and in our bedrooms. They're in the ways that we relate to our bodies and other people's bodies. And it's greatly informed by these systems that have done so much damage to really intentionally create a binary of whose body is worthy of life and whose body should die, right? And I don't say that lightly because that's what we are navigating on a regular basis. But I think there's a desire in our world to, I think out of survival for our brain's sake, to compartmentalize so many things, to compartmentalize genocide. And then we'll talk about blowjobs. And then we'll talk about how oil prices are increasing. But all of these things are actually interconnected, right? And I think a major through line of my book is bodily autonomy. Yes, there is one particular chapter on consent, but truly all of it could be connected in that way, because under these oppressive structures, what is oftentimes removed is bodily autonomy. And in our country, in particular in the US, we talk about bodily autonomy as it relates to abortion, right? Or sexual assault, but we don't actually talk about bodily autonomy also being transphobia, right? Denying people being able to identify themselves as they see themselves, the gender binary being a bodily autonomy issue, right? Like there's so many things that exist in our field that are bodily autonomy issues that directly connect to how the state is interested in us not naming ourselves, not saying what it is that we want and we need, because if we're just docile robots that just follows along, then that's great for, for the people in power. Then we just keep supporting them.
Right. They love that. One more question for the quick and dirty, and then we're going into the book for real. What's one thing that everyone, whoever's listening, could do today to liberate themselves from oppressive narratives around sex?
Oh, one thing is that I would question what are some of the narratives that you've been carrying forward. I think the only way to really undo and untether yourself from these oppressive systems is to, number one, identify that it is an oppressive thought that you have. And there's so many thoughts that are oftentimes just thought of as quote unquote normal that we don't contest. And I would argue if you think that what you're thinking is normal, then it's likely from an oppressive structure.
Right. Like where did that come from?
Where did it really come from, right? So I would do the work to start identifying what some of those thoughts are. And are some of the thoughts you're having similar to what's coming out of the president's mouth? Right? Like,
really consider that.
Not necessarily just the obviously the hatred, right, part, but also the kind of normalizing of war connected to transphobia. There's only two genders, right? The president is saying those things. So if you're also saying those things and you already don't agree with who the president is, then you might consider you should do some work to think about where these thoughts are coming from.
Wait, hold on. Just put a little question mark in there.
Just a thought.
Just put a pause. That is a very good point. Yes. Let's start with the title. Where did nasty work come from? How did you decide on that title? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so actually my partner was a big support in the title because I wrote the entire book and my editor was like, okay, what's the title?
What is it called?
And I'm like, I don't know. And I think, my partner and I, we workshopped this, idea of nasty, right? And a lot of my students, especially young folks, anytime I would come in the room and say the word sex, they're like, ew, yuck, nasty, So there's that part, and nasty being this thing that, something that adults do, and it feels good, and how we relate to sex. And I think of all of my favorite people like Janet Jackson and Megan Thee Stallion and many others who've created songs with the title nasty, right? And how much of a reclamation that is in terms of sex, especially for Black femmes who have been hypersexualized in this world. So to really reclaim that. But then nasty work is something that a lot of can be attributed to Black queer ballroom communities, in that it's a double entendre. So you can say in African American vernacular that somebody's walk is nasty, meaning that it's fire, right? Their walk is fire. But then in the same breath, you could also say Donald Trump is doing nasty work all over the world, right? Mm-hmm. And that also means, right, that it's horrible. So I think why I love this title so much and that we came to this is because talking about sex, so there's the nasty part, but then the nasty work of it all is that so many structures and systems are so much embedded in this work. And a big function of it being nasty work is that we don't talk about it.
So, all right, we have been verbose so far. You're about to be quite verbose because this next question requires a lot. We don't have time to unpack all of this, right? No,
right. Go read the book. Go read the book.
Read the book. But could you give kind of like a simple 101 for how colonization has informed our views on sex and intimacy? I understand that it's challenging to do quickly, which you don't have to, but what comes up for you?
A simple 101. Okay. So in the intro of this book, I start by acknowledging that I wrote the book on stolen land. And this is also how I begin my classrooms. I always acknowledge stolen land, but I take it a step further and say, in the academic world, we spend a lot of time acknowledging things, but not actually in an inquiry of how we're going to actually shift it, right? It becomes this social justice check mark of
like virtue signaling.
Exactly. I did the acknowledgement and now let's move on. But we're not going to actually connect how this violence informs how this institution exists, it informs who comes here or not, informs who's left out or not. And in my classrooms, we do that work, but also what is the work and the demand for us to make sure the land is given back, right? Like you have, is that a vulva puppet in your corner over there?
I do, yeah.
If I stole your vulva puppet and then tomorrow when I speak in Atlanta, say, I stole Danielle's vulva puppet from Sex with DB. I'm just acknowledging that I stole it and that's it. I'll just keep acknowledging that I stole it. That wouldn't be sufficient, right? And every time
I kind of want it back.
You kind of want it back, right? So why are we relating to acknowledging stolen land as if that's sufficient, right? It's a bit of a slap in the face. But then also, if we think that acknowledging stolen land is sufficient, how else are we relating to consent and bodily autonomy, which was inherently removed from Indigenous Americans via colonialism, right? So as we're thinking about relationships and the fact that sexual assault is a function of a power dynamic, and you're in a relationship with someone that's a man or masculine, and perhaps you're a femme identifying person or maybe even agender, how are you relating to that person and how are you relating to your body? There was a trend on TikTok for a while where presumable cisgender women were like celebrating that their partner had fallen asleep because they had promised them sex and they were happy they just went to sleep and they didn't have to say no. And this was, I say this example often because this was trending on TikTok. Okay.
AKA,
it wasn't just
quite popular.
Exactly. It wasn't just a few people and this was a controversy. No. This was multiple people saying that they were glad that their partner forgot, that their partner fell asleep. Right. And I'm assuming that these folks are likely married or whatever. With that institution, what sort of messaging are we sending to folks who are married around sex, especially femme and women identifying people, right? Are we sending the messages, your body belongs to that man? So how is that any different than the continued colonial impacts around the world, right? The apartheid state of Israel can go into Gaza and completely wipe out an entire civilization and people not really do anything about that. It's the same thing as, folks essentially having a trend on sexual assault, because that's what it is. Like, you're saying that you don't feel like you could say no. You don't feel like that no would be affirmed. You're in a dynamic where you're grateful that something else happened where they forgot. That's alarming, right? So making those connections. And then, I could go on and on about anti-trans legislation and transphobia as well. But I think that is one of our biggest issues in this country, is that we're not, or around the world, is that we're not connecting the continued function of colonialism, because people think about it as a function of the past, but it continues as how it is impacting how we relate to ourselves in relationship with other people, but also how we relate to other people's bodies as well. Whose bodies are able to consent and whose bodies are able to say no, right? Whose bodies are constantly positioned as the perpetrators of sexual violence, whose bodies are seen as not doing that, which would have a trend like that on TikTok Go, where people are like, oh, this is fine, you're married. Right. What?
Right.
That was one-on-one, but very long. I apologize.
No, not long. I mean, we could do an entire episode just answering, a series.
Yes.
Many seasons answering this question.
I teach a 15-week course called Sex Ed as Resistance. And this is where we stay, connecting where colonialism shows up in everything.
Because it's continued. I mean, I think another thing, trigger warning for sexual assault and rape. As of recording this episode, recently it came out that 62 million people visited the Rape Academy site in order to figure out how to drug and rape your spouse or a woman without her knowing. Like, how could we not be continuing to talk about these issues when even if one person did it is enough, but 62 million in 1 month, in the shortest month of the year, in February of this year, were what this site, this horrific, horrendous, abhorrent site was visited by 62 million people. How could we not be talking about this?
I don't think it was 62 million people. It was 62 million hits.
Visits. Yeah, but it was like unique IP addresses.
Yeah, it was like 2.5 million people, but it's still a lot.
Okay,
but also,
2.5 million people.
It's still too much.
It's still
those
bad.
people still did 62 million hits. But my thing is, of course they did. Of course they're trying to find ways to get whatever they want without actually having a conversation. It's in everything.
Right.
It's in literally everything. It's in the fact that in New York City, in a neighborhood called Bed-Stuy, most of the black residents, which is a predominantly black neighborhood, have been completely removed. It is now a neighborhood that is damn near predominantly white. No one is saying, people literally will argue me tooth and nail. That's a function of real estate. That's how real estate works. The tide is always changing. Where do you think those black people went to live? You think they just up and left their homes of 20 and 30 years just randomly? Or were they systematically pushed out by a system that does not regard bodily autonomy, that says, I get to have what I want and you don't get to have what you want?
Right.
Of course they visit those sites. Of course they want to find ways to remove bodily autonomy.
Yeah, completely.
I don't think we're addressing the root of these things. I just don't.
We're not. And, yesterday I went in and did a lesson with 9th through 12th graders. And we talked about healthy versus unhealthy relationships and STIs and birth control. I know, me too. Yes. Honestly, high school to me, I'm like,
I love high school.
No offense to middle schoolers. It's just tough.
Middle school is rough. Middle school is feels like a therapy session oftentimes.
Just really tough. But high school, I'm like, this shit is really, really relevant to your life right now.
Yes.
And if we as educators can get in there at the right moment, we can really be changing. I mean, whatever. This is maybe hyperbolic in some ways.
It's not hyperbolic.
That we hope that we change people's lives in this way.
It does. It will.
It will. It hopefully will. And we just had such a great conversation yesterday. I could tell their eyes were their brains were turning, their eyes were like focusing in when I said something like, if you're talking to someone who you want to have sex with and they don't want to talk to you about their STI status, they're not ready to have sex with you. Like talking about the ways in which we talk about sex to each other. Period. And these young people need to hear this over and over and over again so that when they become adults, they're capable of having these conversations and not having to scoot around these ideas of not having conversations with people in order to have pleasure and have desire. It's just like that's the 101 to me.
That's the 101. I do an exercise. I talk about this exercise in my book where I have students walk around and I say, just shake each other's hands. And they go around and they shake each other's hands. And they just go like this, right? Because that's the motion to shake a hand. And then I ask them after they're done it, and some people are like, oh, I shook 18 people's hands, or I shook like 10 people's hands. I'm like, not a competition, but okay. And then we come back and I say, did it have consent? And they're like, I don't think so. I don't know. And I said, okay, go back and do it where that handshake would have consent. And they start discussing, right? Can I shake your hand? The other person say, no, I don't want to shake your hand. Can I give you a fist bump? Right? Negotiation, right? How many times have you shaken someone's hand and they damn near broke your hand? Or they had a super sweaty palm? Or you felt you had to shake their hand in order to get that job, right? Did it actually have consent? And how often are we in positions like this? But also, have you ever not wanted to shake someone's hand and you didn't say no? Right. And we spend a lot of time there, too, where some people are like, I didn't want to say no. I felt bad for not just shaking their hand, right? And where else does that show up? If shaking a hand, which is so vanilla, right? If that is hard to say no to, imagine when you're naked in bed with somebody.
Completely.
Right?
Yeah.
Imagine when you're on a date or you're in the car or whatever, right?
Yeah.
How do we build that muscle? I have a 3-year-old, and if you know anything about 3-year-olds, all they say is no. That is their favorite.
That's the whole thing.
That's their favorite word. My child's name is East No Heart, right? Like, that's it. And, you know, a lot of my family will say, you know, I'm so frustrated with East saying no. Like, that's really hard for me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's great that East says no.
Yeah.
Right. And it's super challenging for even us as parents. We're like, OK, just say, go to the bathroom. Stop saying no. I want you to build the muscle of no so that you don't grow up to be an adult that has a hard time saying no. Right.
Building the muscle of no is really good.
Build the muscle of no. We really bully no out of children. We say, go hug that person. Go kiss them. Go say hello. And they'll tell you no, and we tell them to do it anyway. So what we're telling young people from very, very young ages is that they should not trust their body. They should just go do the thing because it'll make that other person feel better.
Or it's polite or whatever it is.
Whatever it is. Whatever it is. And that is putting them in incredibly harm's way.
Completely. This might be the most unassuming thing on your nightstand, and also the most powerful. Meet Lem, the tiny lemon that's causing major pleasure. It's cute, it's discreet, it's whisper quiet, and then you turn it on. Suddenly, not so innocent. Lem uses these soft little air kisses that build into full-on waves of pleasure, and with 12 intensity levels, you can take your time or go straight to, oh, wow. It's beginner friendly, but it does not play small. If you're curious, go to hellonancy.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 25% off. Okay, real talk. If your vagina feels off, like recurring itchiness or odor, that's your microbiome trying to get your attention. Your vaginal health is all about balance, and when that balance gets disrupted, that's when things like yeast infections or BV can show up. The Happy V prebiotic and probiotic is designed to support a healthy vaginal microbiome and maintain an optimal pH with 7 clinically studied probiotic strains at their clinically effective dosages. If you're ready for the relief you've been looking for, head to happyv.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off your first order. That's happyv.com. Happy V as in vagina.com. We're going to transition to pleasure now because that's what this season is all about. And, you know, part of your book, Explore Desire, Liberate Yourself, there's obviously some pleasure baked in there. And so, you know, there definitely are a lot of cultural narratives that keep us from pursuing pleasure. We've kind of spoken to a lot of these. A lot of it comes from colonialist kind of roots and the way in which we encourage or not encourage people to experience pleasure in their own bodies. But I'm wondering, for listeners who want to pursue more pleasure in their body, but haven't gotten over the mental roadblocks around it or are legitimately halted by some of these cultural narratives or by all the things that we've talked about, the way in which that people are told to treat their bodies based on the cultural narratives around them. What are some like words of wisdom or encouragement that you have for people to explore their own pleasure?
One would be to do so on your own terms without another person. I think masturbation is fantastic. One of the first Surgeon Generals, Dr. Jocelyn Elders, was fired in the 90s under Bill Clinton's presidency because she told young people, informed them that, or she believed that masturbation was a great form of care for yourself, but also would support in ending teen pregnancy, even though now they're sending out statuses saying that teen pregnancy going down is a bad thing. Which
oh my God, just absolutely
I
horrific.
can't even be with it. Right. So I think encouraging masturbation, finding ways that you desire pleasure so that you can name it if you're interested in being with another person. I think that feels really good. It doesn't have to be that you go directly to your genitals, right? The skin is the largest sexual organ. So what other parts of your body feel good to touch, right? Does it feel really good to have your back rubbed or have your feet rubbed or to be taken care of, right? For somebody to cook a meal for you or for somebody to pay your bills, right? Like what is desire for you, right? And how can you begin to name that and stay very true to that is what it is that you need without being essentially coerced into believing that it needs to be some other way, right? There's always discourse online about people with vaginas and vulvas not getting sensation from penetrative sex, but getting it from clitoral stimulation. Mm-hmm. Literally, the whole point of the damn clitoris is sexual pleasure, right?
Hello.
Like, we have been indoctrinated into this belief that we are supposed to experience pleasure via penetration, which we can. I'm not knocking that. But literally, the clitoris and the penis are homologous structures. They're the same. So imagine just being like, I'm going to rub your leg instead of rub the head of your penis, right? And it's just not the same.
It might not do it for you.
It might not do it for you. So, actually leaning into what feels good for you rather than what is going to please somebody else, I think is very, very important. I think a lot of times people get caught up in, I worked in sex toy shops for a very long time, and people would always, a main question was, is this going to stop me from being interested in my partner? Is this going to turn me off? And it's like, not necessarily, but it's going to last longer. It's more reliable.
It's going to open your eyes to a consistent pleasure that you can depend on forever.
It's guided by you, right? And what you need. You can turn it on whenever you want, right? So I think masturbation and also leaning into what it is that you desire beyond what the world is saying that you should, beyond sex, right? Beyond masturbation, right? What turns you on and what it is that you need, I think is a great question to be thinking about ongoingly, right? What you needed in college is very different than what you need as a grown adult, right?
Completely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't covered about your book that you really want to make sure that people know about it? We're going to do another segment, but just so people know, where can they get it? Where can they buy the book?
Oh, you can buy, I would love if you bought the book at bookshop.org because that'll place you with local bookstores. Please also support, it doesn't, whatever money, but please support your local libraries and check out the book and make sure it's there. I love Libby. I have an audiobook as well. I'm always listening to audiobooks. So, bookshop.org, and I would say the library is great. I'm hoping that this book gets into schools. That's also my goal, because I think I kind of wrote this as a tool for sex educators and also people that teach this work to, have a little bit of guidance of how can I teach this or how can I explain this to young people. It's not written in that way, but I think it could actually support.
Incredible. I'm really, thank you so much for delving into all that.
Thank
Such
you.
a special book. Before I let you go, we're going to do one more segment called The Buzz.
Cool.
This is our segment where we find something that we're talking about that is happening in the news. And semi-recently, there was an article in The Guardian about a Mississippi mother who, surprise, couldn't find accurate sex ed for her kids. So she started a class at church, at a Universal Unitarian Church. While other parents in the area were turning to courses by a local pediatrician, which was an option, this mom wanted to make sure that sex ed was free and available to the public. And so I'm kind of wondering, how do folks in red states, which we know are mostly gerrymandered to be red, access care that their state government is keeping from them?
I mean, honestly, this is where the internet comes in handy, right?
Yeah.
Is in social media. There's so many. And now don't have me cite folks right off the top of my head that are working with young people, but I love amaze.org, which is a
Same.
great YouTube channel that goes through, I believe, from like middle school age all the way to high school.
Yeah.
I was using it a lot for even my elementary school students.
Same.
I think YouTube has its issues, but there's a lot of great educators on there. Obviously, do your vetting, see, where these people are coming from. Make sure you're not going down any red pill rabbit holes, but actually using credible sources to educate. I think Scarletine is still around. Like Scarletine is something I used when I was a kid, right? And also used when I was an adult. So, and an educator. So I think in red states, the internet is your friend. And then also looking at various pockets of organizers and folks who are pushing up against the state, who oftentimes will also have these discourses as well. So
Completely.
Yeah.
I'm really excited that this is happening in a church. I think so often we as sex educators like hiss at churches when it comes to the overlap of sex ed in churches, but this is like a universal Unitarian church, and the curriculum that they're using is OWL, Our Whole Lives, which is something that we studied in public health school and a lot of folks use in churches and third spaces. I'm curious, as a decades experienced sex educator, what are other community spaces that should think about holding space for sex education like this?
I also love that this is happening at churches, and sex educators should not hiss at churches because how much sex is happening at church, okay? When I was a teen, that is where we were having sex. Okay?
Oh my God, I'm scandalized.
In the parking lot, we were having right before choir rehearsal, yes. I think hair salons should be having these discourses. I used to want to go around the country to teach sex ed at hair salons because people sit, especially Black hair salons, because we sit there for so long and it becomes a communal experience of just chatting, right? Sometimes people are not even getting their hair done. They just come in to sit. Barbershops, same thing. Black barbershops, coffee shops as well. I used to it's so funny. I'm like going back into the vault. There was a long conversation I had like 9 or 10 years ago where I was working with this UK brand to have open a coffee shop to have conversation around sex and sexuality. Like, I don't think it has to be, someone is speaking at the front, but I think people could write their thoughts down or could answer various prompts when they come. Everybody is on their phone or on a laptop, but sometimes coffee shops are like no laptops. So maybe that's an opportunity to engage and have questions and, maybe talk to the barista about these things. But I think third spaces are so important. Libraries being another big one.
Another shout out to the library.
Another shout out to the library, right? Such important. Please save our libraries. Such important spaces to be engaging young people and adults around sex and sexuality. And they're free, right? Like not having the barrier of cost to enter into these spaces is so important.
Critical. Absolutely critical. Okay, I have one more question before I let you go.
Yes.
This feels like good news, right? In this time where things are often so bad. Back to kind of the pleasure question. How do we center joy and pleasure of community coming together instead of kind of focusing on our collective frustration and misery? Like what are the things that you do in your life to kind of remind you of the good when the bad feels like it's taking over?
One, I don't resist the frustration, right? I lean into, I think Audre Lorde writes a lot about anger and expressions of pleasure and rooted in anger. And I don't resist that, right? I think leaning into it is very, very important. And there will be light at the end of the tunnel. I love gardening. I love to be in nature. I allegedly live in New Jersey now. I lived in New York City for a very long time. And there's a park that I walk that's a beautiful lake. And it's just, sometimes I just stop and listen to the trees. I grew up in the suburbs, so I just was that kid. And I feel like I'm still that kid. I love like the wind ruffling the feathers of the trees. There's a bird that's trying to build a nest on my windowsill. And last year it caused a great deal of issues because, birds have they got a lot of disease bugs in their feathers. I don't want to say diseases. They have a lot of bugs in their feathers.
Birds, they're full of diseases.
Birds, they're just full of diseases.
You've heard of bird flu.
And the windowsill is in my closet. So I'm like, I can't have you build a nest here. I just can't. No. So they're pissed at us because we're trying to like put fans and all this stuff to keep them out. So they're just, but it felt like, it's so funny because I'm terrified of somebody coming in my house, obviously, but it felt like somebody was in the house because they were arguing, the birds. But I knew that it was the birds. Like, nature is so cool, right? And I just get so much pleasure being in this space that truly is I don't know how else to say this, unfuckable with, right? You cannot fuck with nature. The ocean, right? Have you seen?
Oh my God.
What? Those pictures from Artemis of the Pacific Ocean?
It's crazy.
Anytime I go to the Pacific Ocean, I feel just engulfed, right? Like, y'all live so close to my favorite place is Half Moon Bay.
Oh, so beautiful there.
I just don't even understand how you live down the street from that. Like, I would be there every single day.
It's beautiful.
So yeah, that's where I get joy. Also, my kid is just the perfect, wildest Aquarius ever. And it's so much fun. And it's a dream to be their parent. So I get a lot of joy from that as well. Also being in community, going out, having fun with my friends. I love an espresso martini.
They love to party.
A margarita, like 1, 2, 3, 4 margaritas.
Get me on the dance floor.
That's right. Or just sitting, or a lounge,
or just sitting and chatting.
My knees are different now.
We have to honor that.
Yes.
Well, Ericka, this has been so much fun. Thank you for spending your time with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Where can folks find you?
They can find me on Instagram, iHeart, IHARTERICKA. And that's also my website. My TikTok is the same, but there's a number 1 at the end. Threads the same. YouTube also the same. I have a podcast with my partner called Hood Rat to Head Rap. Right now we are a little bit on a pause because of all this touring. Yeah. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ericka.
Thank you.
Welcome to The Afterglow, where we wind things down, reflect on the big takeaways, and leave you with one juicy thing to try, think about, or explore before next week. Like I said to Ericka, we could spend hours and hours and podcast seasons on colonization and sex. From gender to pleasure to shame, colonization shows up everywhere in our society if you too live in a colonized nation, like the US, for example. I loved Ericka talking about challenging your thinking and asking, where did this come from? A lot of the things that we think are common sense really are ultimately just things that we're taught by society. Two genders that are men and women, not actually common sense. Men are just more sexual than women, not actually common sense. It's unnatural to want sex that isn't just vanilla missionary with your spouse, not actually common sense. These are all societal narratives that we are taught, not universal truths. We also talked a lot about stolen land and what it's like for Ericka to not only just name the fact that we exist and teach on stolen land, but what we can actually do about that and what the thoughts and feelings are around that instead of just doing a land acknowledgement for virtue signaling. Did you know that you can easily find whose stolen land you're living on right now? In the show notes, we've added a link to Native Land Digital, where you can put in your city or zip code and find which native cultures made a home where you are before it was colonized. Right now, I'm in Oakland, California, and I'm in the territories of the Mawekma Ohlone. Ericka's book is a great analysis of what this means and how this manifests, and I really hope that you give it a read. We have a link in the show notes, and it's with my bookshop.org affiliate link where you can help support Ericka and the show. Or absolutely ask your local library if they'll order copies of Nasty Work. Here is your pleasure practice of the week. This week, think about one thing that brings you pleasure, even though it is supposedly not normal or you're not supposed to for whatever reason. And then do it with joy. Do it with resistance. Wear lingerie and don't show it to anyone else. Put together a meal with just like a crazy flavor combination that nobody gets but you, or that you get a lot of shit for, but that you just like. Go watch a cartoon if you're an adult. If you're a man, watch a rom-com. Watch a gory, grimy horror movie if you're a woman. Reclaim the joy. Think about the resistance that comes from your actions. And remember, there is no such thing as normal. We are all making this shit up as we go. Thank you so much for listening. Love y'all. Talk to you next week.